As usual, the shift in the surgical ward was very tough, with patients arriving one after another, and by the end of the day, Dr. Lucas was exhausted. He was nervous when he walked out of the office because a silly lady had thrown a tantrum and wouldn't let him examine her, claiming that she had simple food poisoning and didn't need surgery. Eventually, it turned out that she had a severe stomach disease and needed emergency surgery. Fortunately, the patient was saved, but as soon as Lucas entered the office, took a sip of tea, and was about to have a snack, a nurse, Stephanie, entered his office and shouted, "Lucas, the ambulance brought in some beggar." They picked her up right off the street and diagnosed her with acute appendicitis. "Shall I prepare everything necessary in the operating room? But first, have lunch and get some rest. This patient can wait. You really need to rest. It's going to be your 5th surgery today." Lucas frowned and reprimanded Stephanie. "Thank you for your concern. But please, remember, we work in a hospital to save people. This is our top priority. A beggar is a human being. We are all humans, and it is our responsibility to help everyone. Come on, there's no time to rest. I need to examine that patient." Lucas hated it when someone divided people into the rich and the poor, always offering the best conditions to the rich and not giving proper treatment to the poor. The man believed that everyone can suffer hard times, but everybody deserves at least proper medical treatment, and a healthcare worker must help everyone. It was his philosophy of life. The doctor looked at the patient and saw a pretty woman of about 35 years old. She was dressed in some old clothes. She had dirt under her fingernails, and her hair had not been washed for a long time. But she had beautiful almond-shaped eyes with thick black eyelashes. There were tears and some kind of doomness in her eyes. The woman was not hysterical or screaming. She didn't utter a sound at all. She was only biting her lips and grimacing in pain. The doctor examined her abdomen, and then began to ask questions and write things down as usual. "I need to know your last name, first name, and your address. Why didn't you tell the ambulance team anything about yourself? You have acute appendicitis and need an urgent operation. Please sign a consent for surgery. Do you have your ID with you?" The woman replied quietly, "My name is Victoria. I have no address. I am homeless. I don't want to sign any papers. And I don't need surgery. I just want to die. Please, leave me alone." But the surgeon was not surprised. He only said, "I see. I'm sorry, but I can't fulfill your wish. There's no time to argue now. Take her to the operating room. I'm sorry, dear, but I'm a doctor. I have to save your life. Everything will be fine. You'll see." The surgery was successful, and 2 hours later, the woman had already woken up after general anesthesia. The doctor was sitting next to her and, together with the anesthesiologist, monitored the patient's condition. The woman was fidgeting nervously on the bed and shouting something strange. "The Countess's stash. I'll find it anyway. Do you hear me? I'll find it. Why don't you believe me? I'm not lying. The stash is there. You don't understand." Lucas and his co-worker glanced at each other. The anesthesiologist chuckled and said, "You know, patients say even crazier things after surgery. She's hallucinating right now. It happens a lot after general anesthesia. Soon she'll come to her senses and won't remember what nonsense she was talking about. However, our patient certainly doesn't look like a countess." After making sure that the patient was all right, Lucas finally decided to go home and only now realized how tired he was. His head and legs ached terribly. The man stopped by the supermarket on his way home and bought groceries for dinner and a lovely teddy bear for his daughter. He picked her up from his neighbor who was babysitting the girl. The daughter was very excited when she saw her father and hugged him tightly. "Daddy, why are you so late? I missed you so much. Are you going to work again tomorrow? Will we go for a walk in the park when you have a day off? Look at the boat I made with my friend. I'm going to sail it on the lake. Also, Mrs. Johnson and I learned a poem. Do you want me to tell it to you? Lucas smiled. He loved his little daughter so much. He nodded and praised her. My clever girl. Of course. Tell me. And of course, we'll go for a walk in the park on my day. Official, by the way. Look what I bought you. Do you like this teddy bear? The girl clapped her hands and was genuinely happy about the gift. Thank you, Daddy. How soft and cute it is. I'm going to call him Lucky. I love you so much. Why don't I help you with dinner? I'll cut the cucumbers for the salad and make the tea. The family had dinner, and Lucas started to check Sophia's homework. Then he opened the school journal and was pleasantly surprised. There was a note about Sophia's misbehavior, and the teacher added that she needed to talk to Lucas. The man was shocked because usually his daughter always behaved decently. She was a shy and well-mannered girl. Lucas didn't scold Sophia. First, he tried to find out what was wrong. Sophia, what happened? Please tell me. The girl became sad and answered reluctantly. The boys bullied me and mocked me. I couldn't control myself and attacked them. They are mean. They say I don't have a mom, and my dad is fake. How can I tolerate it? The man hugged his daughter and tried to comfort her. They're wrong, but it's still not good to fight. Just tell them that your daddy is a surgeon who saves people's lives and loves you very much. If they insult you again, I will deal with it. Tell me if they bother you again. I'll talk to them myself. And to your teacher, too. Now go take a shower and go to bed. Everything will be all right. I won't let anyone hurt you. Lucas walked out of the nursery, made himself some tea, and decided to go to school tomorrow and talk to Sophia's teacher. He thought, if Charlotte were alive, everything would be different. I failed to save her, even though I'm a doctor. He took a sip of tea and thought about his past life with nostalgia and sadness. Lucas grew up in an ordinary family. They weren't rich. His mother worked as a cook, and his father was a turner. They lived like everyone else in their small town, trying to save money, but it was rarely possible. Despite the difficulties, his mother always tried to stay optimistic and managed to cook delicious food using the cheapest ingredients. Lucas still remembered the taste of her brilliant homemade food. The boy dreamed of becoming a doctor since childhood, and since his school days, he studied the medical encyclopedia. His parents encouraged their son, although they doubted that he could get into medical university without money and connections. Lucas had known his wife since kindergarten. They were neighbors, and their parents were friends. Lucas and Charlotte attended the same kindergarten and the same school, growing up almost like brother and sister. Sometimes they quarreled, like everyone else, but they couldn't stay mad at each other for long and always made up quickly. They used to trust each other, but after school, their paths separated for a while. Lucas entered the medical university, as he dreamed, and left his hometown. But Charlotte decided to apply to the pedagogical university and stayed at home. They promised each other that they would call each other every day and be friends as before. At first, it was like that. They shared news and achievements in their studies and could talk to each other for hours. However, as time went on, Charlotte began to call less and less often. It seemed that she avoided these conversations. Lucas couldn't stand it and asked her, "Charlotte, did I do something wrong? Why have you become so indifferent? Or is there something I don't know? Or maybe you got a boyfriend? Tell me the truth." A shocked Charlotte replied, "How did you know?" "Yeah, I have a boyfriend. His name is Max, and we're dating. I mean, you and I live in different cities now, and we've chosen different professions. So we have to start building our own lives. I hope you're not offended. I mean, we're just friends, right?" For some reason, Lucas felt so hurt, as if everything inside of him had turned upside down. He didn't know why, but he remained silent as if everything were fine and he was happy for Charlotte. Their relationship before the separation had been strange. It was a mix of true friendship and something more. Both were attracted to each other, but they were probably afraid to confess it. From that day on, they almost stopped communicating until graduation. Lucas fully devoted himself to his studies. Sometimes, he attended student parties, and many girls tried to flirt with him, but it didn't go further than short-time affairs. His heart was occupied by Charlotte. He didn't need anyone else. From his parents, he learned that his beloved has gone through a hard time. She was already preparing for marriage, but when she got pregnant, her fiancé broke up with her and gave up the baby. He lied that he was promoted, but now he had to move to another city. Charlotte couldn't cope with the breakup and terminated the pregnancy. Hearing such news, the guy immediately went home on weekends, and the first thing he did was to go not to his parents, but to Charlotte. Her mom opened the door and was really happy to see Lucas. "Hello, Lucas. I'm so happy to see you. Oh, you've grown so much, and you look so much like your father. Thanks for stopping by. So, how's your studies going?" But it seemed as if the boy didn't hear her. He only asked, "I need to talk to Charlotte urgently. Is she home?" The woman only lowered her eyes. She spends 24 hours a day in her room, doesn't want to look for a job, and cries every day. I don't know how to help her. She made a big mistake and ruined her whole life. I feel so sorry for her, but don't know how to help. Lucas made his way to Charlotte's room. The windows were closed, and the girl was lying on the bed in her pajamas. When she heard someone enter, she reluctantly raised her head, saw Lucas, and started crying. "Why are you here? I don't want to see anyone. Now I'm infertile because of the abortion, so I will never be able to have children. I'm just a pathetic, defective woman." Max turned out to be just a jerk. He said he wanted to pursue a career, not take care of babies. "It's my own fault, but no one can help me, so I just want to die here. Please go away." But Lucas refused to leave. At this very moment, the guy realized how much he loved Charlotte. No matter what, he lay down next to her, put his arms around her, and began to whisper, "Silly girl, I've come to you. I need you. You and I were made for each other. Pack your bags. You're coming with me. You'll get a job in the big city. I'll rent an apartment, and together we'll cope with everything. And children. If we deserve it, God will give us children. Charlotte, I just want to know, why did you start a relationship with Max? Don't you love me at all?" Charlotte looked at him and suddenly hugged Lucas, crying loudly, as she had when she was a child. "Because I was stupid. You didn't tell me you loved me. You didn't ask me to move to the city with you. I was sure you didn't need me, so I started dating Max out of spite. I assumed that since he was older than me, he'd be smarter, a promising fiancé. But it turned out differently. He didn't need me. He played with me like I was a dummy and left me. Do you really love me, even now? I promise to be the best wife for you. I have missed you so much, Lucas. You are my only true love." The couple kissed passionately, and it felt as if they had been no time apart. From that moment on, they never parted for a minute. Lucas took Charlotte to the big city. They married and began to live as a family. After graduation, the man got a job in a surgical ward of a hospital. Charlotte got a job as a caretaker in a kindergarten. Their life began to get better. They saved money, bought a one-bedroom apartment, a nice car, and went on vacation in the summer. Charlotte was a perfect housewife. The apartment was always perfectly tidy, and the refrigerator was full of delicious food. Every day she spent time with the babies at work, and now she really wanted to have a baby with the man she loved. But the years went by, and the pregnancy never came. She blamed herself for her relationship with Max, and more importantly, for the abortion. She realized that this was the reason for her infertility. The couple didn't despair, and underwent all kinds of examinations, hoping for miracles of medicine. But a year ago, something changed in Lucas's career too. There was a new head of the department at the hospital, and this new head was Max, Charlotte's ex-fiancé. Everyone knew how that stupid guy got the job. His father had helped him. Obviously, there was hostility between the men. There was no open conflict, but relations were tense. Max was an extremely mean person who could set someone up for the sake of his career. He absolutely didn't appreciate professionals. Some employees realized it and hurried to quit or transfer to another department. Max had arranged Lucas' schedule in such a way that Lucas hardly had any days off, and the surgeon could not forgive his rival for the situation with Charlotte and deliberately worked on the most difficult cases, violated the instructions, and literally saved patients' lives. Max was furious, but he couldn't punish the surgeon. Crowds of grateful patients came to him, and the top management praised his courage in making unconventional decisions. A year ago, Lucas and his wife, desperate to have a baby, decided to adopt a baby from an orphanage. They went there several times, but could not make their final decision. They felt so sorry for all the babies. But their plans were not destined to come true. Charlotte had a heart attack right at work. Why? No one knew. Lucas nearly lost his mind from the stress. He helped Charlotte with rehabilitation and helped her avoid stress, surrounded her with care and love. The woman seemed to get better, and the dynamics were good. But then, her parents died unexpectedly. The woman suffered a second heart attack because of stress, and soon she passed away. It was the most terrible time. Lucas thought he could not withstand it all. His hands were shaking, and he could not perform surgery. So he got a vacation and went to his parents for a while. It was easier to get over such a loss together. Pretty soon he started getting calls from the hospital. They begged him to get back to work as soon as possible. Lucas hugged his mother and said quietly, "Mom, I have to go. You know, I want to fulfill Charlotte's dream and adopt a baby. Would you and Dad be okay with that? It's really important to me. Otherwise, I'll go crazy with loneliness." His mom was very understanding. "It's the right decision, dear. Life goes on. Maybe you will meet a decent woman and fall in love again. Who knows? And we will always welcome a grandson or granddaughter. Do what you think is right. Remember that your father and I will always support you." At work, people met him warmly and sympathized, and only Max worked had a triumphant look on his face, as if he was glad that everything happened that way. He spread vile rumors that Lucas was a terrible doctor who failed to save his own wife. Soon Lucas headed to the orphanage again. All the paperwork was almost done, but he couldn't decide whether he wanted to adopt a boy or a girl, and what age. But it was fate that made the decision. Lucas suddenly saw a girl of about 8 years old with pigtails running down the corridor. She was almost a copy of his late wife. The same blue eyes, sharp nose with a scattering of freckles and messy bangs. It felt as if he was back in his childhood. The man caught up with the little girl and touched her hand. "Hello, sunshine. Where are you in such a hurry? My name is Lucas. And what's your name?" The little girl held out her little palm in a business-like manner and replied sharply, "You are trying in vain. I have a mom, and I love her. And I don't need anyone else. I won't go to someone else's family. Go find yourself another child." Lucas was dumbfounded, but didn't give up. "Well, that's great. But why are you here then? Where's your mom?" The girl answered reluctantly. "She disappeared, and they brought me here. I told the people from the child services that I'm already grown up and I can live on my own and wait for my mom. But nobody listened to me. But I know for sure my mommy will take me away from here. By the way, my name is Sophia." "All right. I have to go. Mrs. Garcia from the canteen promised to give me a piece of apple pie." Lucas uttered, "Okay, Sophia. Well, let's be friends then. Okay. Can I come to see you again? What can I bring you?" The little girl thought for a moment and answered, "Yes, we can be friends. You're nice. Bring me some colorful beads and string. I like to make bracelets. Do you want me to make one for you? And ice cream. Big chocolate ice cream in a crunchy cone. My mom always bought me such ice cream. The man decided to ask the manager about Sophia. And the woman answered, "Don't listen to her. She's just a child, making up all sorts of nonsense. Her mother gave up on her. We even have all the necessary papers, but we can't tell the child about it. We don't want to traumatize her. But the girl is nice, smart, and calm. It will be hard for her to live here. I don't even know what happened in their family, but you can see that her mom loved her. Just come here more often. She'll get used to you and she'll love you. You'll see. You are a decent man. You have your own apartment, and you are well off. So if you decide to adopt Sophia, I will be happy and will help you in every possible way. Even though it's against the rules, I think we'll be able to come to an agreement and make it work." And so it went. The more often Lucas came to Sophia, the closer they became. Lucas gave her a phone, and now the girl called him every day. She waited for him and sincerely missed him. And one day she said, "You said you wanted to be my daddy. I agree. Take me away from here. But promise me that if my mom finds me, you'll let me see her. I don't believe she abandoned me, and I will wait for her." Finally, Lucas adopted Sophia. A year later, she was already calling him daddy, and she hardly remembered her life in the orphanage and was a happy child. On weekends, she went to visit her new grandparents, and when Lucas was at work, their kind neighbor stayed with her. That's how the two of them lived. Lucas loved Sophia very much. She was the one who helped him overcome his depression and pushed him to move on with his life. When Sophia was around him, his soul was filled with warmth, and all the problems and sad thoughts receded. The next day, Lucas went to school and had a conversation with his daughter's teacher. They talked in her office. Mrs. Miller talked emotionally. "This is the first time such an incident has happened. Sophia is a very nice girl. She studies diligently, and her behavior has always been good. But the other day she unexpectedly attacked Michelle. It's outrageous. Besides, your daughter has some sort of obsessive thoughts. She tells everyone that her great-grandmother is a countess and that she knows where some treasure is hidden. Of course, her classmates make fun of her. You should talk to Sophia about her behavior. I'm very concerned about it." Lucas felt sick when Sophia's teacher repeated the nonsense that his patient had been saying recently. How is this possible? What the hell? He nodded in confusion and replied, "Okay, I will talk to my daughter, but you also have to talk to that boy. He has been insulting my daughter, calling her homeless, saying she has a fake father. Try to understand me." Sophia finally began to forget her past, and then this happened. She couldn't tolerate it. "I won't let anyone hurt my child." In the evening, when Lucas returned from work, he decided to find out everything. "Sophia, honey, which countess are you telling your classmates about? And why do you think you are her great-granddaughter? I'm curious too. It turns out that your teacher and your classmates know about it, but your dad doesn't. Don't you trust me?" Sophia became very serious. "Well, actually, it's a secret, and I only told it to Anessa. I asked her not to tell anyone. You know, my mom loved me very much. We lived in a village, in a huge house. Mom used to tell me a fairy tale that a countess lived in this very house long ago, and she was our relative. This countess hid her treasures somewhere. There was a lot of gold. Mom dreamed of finding it, but she couldn't. She told me that if we had found it, we would have immediately left my stepfather and moved far away to the sea. No one believes me, but my mom never lied to me, and she couldn't abandon me. I know it." Lucas sighed. Poor child. She still longed for her mother. He took his daughter into his lap, stroked her hair, and said, "It's a very interesting fairy tale. Or maybe it's not even a fairy tale. Who knows? But let's keep it a secret. Don't tell anyone else about it. Okay? And I promise that I will try to find out everything about your mother, about the mysterious countess, and the treasure." The girl hugged her father. "Really? Thank you for believing me. I promise I won't tell anyone else. Will you really find my mom? Daddy, I love you, but I miss my mommy so much. Her name is Victoria. She's so beautiful, like a princess. Lucas put his daughter to bed and reflected. An 8-year-old child could not make up such a story about a countess. Is that beggar really Sophia's mother? Such coincidences do not happen. I need to talk to her tomorrow while she's still in the hospital. Very interesting story. Lucas entered the hospital room. That patient was already easily working around the room. She had washed her hair and looked very attractive even in a hospital gown. The woman saw the doctor and smiled sweetly at him. Thank you so much, Lucas. You saved my life. The nurse told me that I only survived thanks to you. If you hadn't started the operation immediately, I would have died. I apologize if I told you something wrong. Lucas examined the patient and was satisfied. Victoria, you're doing fine. I think we can discharge you in 2 days. Victoria lowered her eyes and suddenly asked, can I stay here a little longer? I know it's a strange request, but still, I have nowhere to go, and I don't have the strength to stay on the streets. While I'm here, I get food and a safe place to sleep. Just 1 more week. Is that possible? The doctor frowned and asked, okay, you can stay here until the end of the week. But I have a question. Tell me, how did you end up homeless? What happened? Also, you were uttering something about the countess and the treasure after the anesthesia. What was that about? I need to know. Victoria panicked. She hesitated and didn't know whether to tell everything or not. Yet she decided to tell the whole truth. I wasn't always homeless. I grew up in a wealthy family. My dad was a farmer, and we had lots of livestock. Our house was very old. When I was a child, I always marveled at how unusual it was. There were high ceilings and a big archway. My grandmother told me that her grandmother, who was a countess, lived in that house too, and that she had hidden a treasure somewhere in the house. There must be her family jewels and ancient coins, books, and personal belongings. We tried to find it, but to no avail. All our neighbors knew about that legend and only laughed. No one believed that it could be true. I went to study to be a veterinarian because I loved animals since childhood, nursing abandoned kittens and weak chickens. At university, I met my first love. It's embarrassing, but it was my tutor, Jack, who was twice my age. He courted me in such a beautiful way. He was married, but he assured me he hadn't lived with his wife for a long time. I don't know why, but I fell madly in love with him. Of course, we dated secretly, so that no one in college would know that we were together. And then it was just like a cheap romantic movie. Pregnancy came unexpectedly, and my elderly fiancé immediately broke up with me. It turned out that his wife had no idea he was cheating on her, and he wasn't going to divorce her. I was expelled and came home without a diploma but with a big belly. At first, my father scolded me, but eventually, things calmed down. He was very happy when his granddaughter was born. Too bad my parents passed away so early. First, my dad, and a year later my mom, as if following him. It was a hard time for me. After my parents died, I inherited the business. Sophia was growing up, and I still had no husband. My unsuccessful first love had taught me not to trust men, and I actually had no time to think about them. And then, after a while, Greg started courting me. He was not from our village. Greg tried to start a business with apiaries, but it didn't work out. At first, I didn't take him seriously and avoided him. I was even angry. He was so annoying. He was always trying to help me, saying that he loved me and would marry me even though I had a child. Little by little I got used to him. I even started to like him. To be honest, there was no choice at all in the village. Only idlers or alcoholics. But I had a farm to run, and I really needed a man to help me. So I decided to give Greg a chance. A year later, we were married. Of course, he knew about the family secret. about the Countess and the treasure. Sophia didn't like her stepfather. I don't know why. He never hurt her. But she kept saying he was mean and not right for me. But I thought it was just childish jealousy. Greg treated Sophia indifferently, neither good nor bad. My daughter also changed her behavior. She stopped getting angry, but she still didn't like Greg. I could feel it. Our life was good. Business was prosperous. But then I got sick. I started to feel dizzy, faint, vomiting. I hesitated to see a doctor for a long time. But one day I fainted and woke up in the ambulance car. Greg was frightened. They brought me to the hospital for an examination. I was worried about my daughter. After all, Greg was not her father, but my husband assured me that he could handle everything. At first, he often came to see me at the hospital, showed me Sophia's drawings, and I talked to Sophia on the phone every day. But then I got increasingly worse. I almost went blind. I thought I wouldn't survive. After a full examination, the doctors diagnosed me with a tumor in my brain. Thank God it was not malignant, but still, it was compressing my nerve endings, which caused all my frightening symptoms. I had to undergo surgery. I was scared, but I had no other way to recover. The doctors immediately warned me that it would be a long rehabilitation, and then I offered Greg to sign a power of attorney to manage the farm. Greg came to me before the surgery and tried to cheer me up and support me, telling me that everything would get better, that I would recover, and that we would live happily like before. He also gave me a lot of papers to sign. I trusted him and signed them all. Soon, I underwent surgery and had a long rehabilitation period. I kept calling Greg, but he stopped answering my calls, and that scared me a lot. It had never happened before. Actually, I expected him to come to the hospital after the surgery. I wanted to see Sophia, to make sure she was okay. But Greg never showed up again, and his phone was off. I was very nervous. I didn't even know if my daughter was okay. Finally, I almost recovered and could go home. I headed to the village with a bad feeling. When I approached my house, I was shocked. There were some strangers living there. They said they had bought the house from my husband and hadn't seen any children here. I tried to explain that it was my house. I cried. I was hysterical, but to no avail. They kicked me out. I rushed to my neighbor Lily, told her everything, and tried to find out what had happened and where is my daughter. She looked at me like I was crazy. The neighbor told me that Sophia was taken to the orphanage by the guardianship authorities. They had a child relinquishment document signed by me. Greg also bragged to her that I had signed a deed of gift, and now he owned the house. After Greg sold the house, he immediately left the village. All the neighbors wondered how I could do that. They thought I had lost my mind. I realized that Greg had asked me to sign all these papers before the surgery when I almost didn't see anything. It still seems like a bad dream to me. I tried to find my daughter. I went to different orphanages, but nobody would tell me anything, because it was against the rules. I wanted to go to court, but what's the point? I have no money. I can't even hire a lawyer. Besides, where can I find that jerk? I'm sure he's already abroad with my money. That's how I turned from a normal woman into a beggar. I thought such things only happened in bad movies. I wandered aimlessly around the city and cried. Then a woman saw me, felt sorry for me, and sheltered me in her basement. I slept there and cleaned the yard. I realized that it looks like nonsense. I guess I can get a job somewhere and rent a place to live. I have to fight, but I just don't have the strength for it. I feel as if everything inside me has died. I just don't want to live without my daughter. The realization that I will never see her again just kills me. Probably, the poor child thinks that I am a monster, that I betrayed her and abandoned her. It hurts so much to think about it. I have dreams about Sophia every night. I try to hug her, but then I wake up crying and don't want to live. When I had a stomachache, I was happy. I was hoping I'd die because I don't want to live like this. Victoria covered her face with her hands and cried. She was so ashamed that she had to tell such details of her life to a stranger. She was sure that the doctor would look at her as if she were crazy. Lucas couldn't stand it. He saw that the woman was not lying. He took her gently by the hand and said, "I'm shocked. You really got into a terrible situation. I sincerely sympathize with you. But I have to tell you something. I know where your daughter is. She's living with me. I adopted her. It's some incredible coincidence. I still can't believe it. If both you and Sophia hadn't said the same thing about the Countess, we would never have known the truth. I was told at the orphanage that her mother abandoned her. Fortunately, Sophia loves you, remembers you, and is waiting for you. She doesn't believe that you could have abandoned her. Victoria, I'll discharge you in 3 days, and you'll move into my apartment. It's not right to separate mother and daughter. You'll stay at my place for a while, and then we'll see. I won't let you be homeless. I'll help you for Sophia's sake. I love her very much, and wish her nothing but happiness." The woman couldn't believe her ears, but rushed to hug the doctor. "Lucas, is this true? Sophia is really with you. I can't believe it. It's such a blessing. Thank you. I can't believe I found my girl. But I won't live idly at your expense. Let me do all the housework, and when I recover, I will get a job. I will do anything to see my little girl and be with her." Lucas pulled out his phone and showed Victoria a picture of his daughter. He asked, "Is this your daughter? Or am I mistaken? I still can't believe it." The woman stroked the screen and cried, "My little girl, my sunshine. She has grown up so much. I wish we could see each other soon. It's definitely her. If you don't believe me, you can make a DNA testament. She also has a mole under her knee, on the left side. You can check. Thank you for believing me, and for telling me the truth. After all, you could hide the truth, and I would continue to look for Sophia and die of longing for her. I am indebted to you forever." The surgeon looked at his watch and said, "Well, you and I have been talking for too long. I have an operation in 15 minutes, but I'm not ready yet. I have to go, and you need to eat. Your soup is getting cold. You need to get your strength back." In the evening, Lucas entered the nursery to check Sophia's math homework. The girl was sitting on the windowsill and looking sadly at the stars in the dark night sky. Lucas quietly sat down next to her, hugged the child, and asked, "Why are you sad, sweetie? Any problems at school again? Or the homework is not going well? That's not a problem. Let's do it together." Sophia sighed heavily and replied, "Everything is fine at school. Dad, Michael doesn't bother me anymore. He apologized, and we made up. And I already did my math homework. You know, I think my mom's dead. They just didn't tell me the truth. Otherwise, she would have found me a long time ago. Maybe she's on that star over there, and I never see her again. Did you leave our address at the orphanage? Maybe my mom doesn't know where to find me now." Lucas felt so sorry for Sophia. His heart clenched. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he said quietly, "Daughter, do you remember I promised you I'd find your mom? Well, I found her. She's in the hospital where I work, and she didn't abandon you. Your stepdad faked it. On the contrary, your mom's been trying to find you all this time. She's missing you. Soon she'll come and live with us. Do you want to see her? Are you happy?" The girl froze for a moment as if not believing him. But then she cried and rushed to hug her father. "Daddy, thank you. You are the best. Is she coming tomorrow? Can I visit her in the hospital? I'm begging you. I can't believe I'm going to see my mom. I knew it. I told them all. My mom couldn't abandon me." Lucas kissed the girl and reassured her. "Okay, tomorrow we'll stop by the hospital before school, and you can see your mom. I know how important it is to you. Everything will be okay now, my dear, and you will never be sad again. I promise. But now it's time to sleep. Good night, sweetheart. I hope you don't forget about me when you see your mom. I'm a little worried, because I love you so much. my sunshine. Sophia almost screamed. No, of course not. I love you even more now. I promise I won't fight at school anymore, and I won't argue with fools so you won't get upset. Let them say whatever they want. Daddy, you're like a magician. You've fulfilled my most cherished dream. No one else has a dad like you. I'm so lucky. Sophia cuddled the teddy bear and couldn't fall asleep. She was already imagining how she would hug her mommy tomorrow. Her most cherished dream had finally come true. Their meeting was so emotional. Not only they were crying, but also the nurses and other patients. Sophia clung to Victoria, kissed her, stroked her hair, and wept. My dear, my sunshine, I missed you so much. I believed I would find you. I saw you in my dreams every night. I'll always be by your side now and we'll never be apart again. I promise. I can only imagine how hard it was for you, what you had to go through. It was so emotional that even Lucas wept. The man decided to help Victoria in everything and restore her rights to her daughter, to prove that her house was sold illegally. After being discharged from the hospital, Victoria moved in with the surgeon. At first, she was a little shy, especially when Lucas insisted on going shopping, buying some clothes, perfume, and makeup products for her. The woman was so grateful. No man had ever done so much good for her. She quickly adapted, and now she devoted all her time to her daughter. She braided her pigtails, did her homework with Sophia, and picked her up from school. Her classmates looked at her perplexedly and whispered. She was not lying. They really found her mom. The girl proudly walked with her mom by the hand and was the happiest at that moment. Lucas hired a good lawyer and began to investigate Victoria's case. They filed a police report and attached a certificate that she was in the hospital in a severe condition and could not consciously give up her daughter. Moreover, it turned out that the house had been sold with the help of fraudsters. After 6 months of exhausting visits to the court and all sorts of authorities, Victoria finally returned the rights to her daughter and even the house. But it was useless. The new owners were forced to move out, but soon the house burned to the ground. Victoria was not upset. She hugged Lucas and whispered, I mentally said goodbye to this house long ago, and I don't care about that mythical treasure. It's not the money that makes me happy. The main thing for me is that my daughter is with me, and I finally found a beloved man. Or rather, my daughter has found a father, and she was not mistaken. You are the best husband and father. Thank you for everything. For the first time since Charlotte's death, Lucas' heart calmed down and the wound in his soul healed. Now he had a family again. What else could he dream of? They didn't live in wealth, but they lived in love. But they never found that jerk, Greg. He'd really gone abroad. Lucas, Victoria, and Sophia lived as a real friendly family. Now Lucas knew that Sophia was safe. When he came home from work, he always had a delicious dinner waiting for him. The apartment was always clean, and the main thing was that Sophia's eyes were literally shining with happiness. Victoria eventually found a job at a vet clinic. She loved animals since childhood and knew how to take care of them and calm them down. One day she brought home a huge white cat and shouted emotionally, Lucas, Sophia, can you imagine? His owners asked to euthanize this cat because he ruined their leather sofa. I tried to explain that the animal just wanted to play and needed some toys, that they could re-educate the cat and everything would get better. But they didn't even listen to me. They paid the money and left. I couldn't do that. This poor cat just looked doomfully at his owners and didn't understand why they had done this to him. Sophia immediately took the cat in her arms. The cat began to purr, was not frightened at all, and even hugged the girl with its paws. Lucas was convinced that he was not mistaken in Victoria, because you can tell what a person is like by the way they treat animals. The man also scratched the cat's ears and winked at him. Well, furry friend, welcome to your new home. How could they give up such a cute boy? Well, don't be sad. We'll love you and won't let anyone hurt you. That's how Rocky ended up in the surgeon's family. Once on Saturday, Victoria said during breakfast, "Why don't we go to my village? To the house where I was born and raised. I had a strange dream today. My late grandmother was talking to me, mentioning the Countess's treasure again, reproaching me for not having found it. I understand it's just a dream, but still, I promise it won't take much time." Lucas agreed. Even though he didn't want to go anywhere on his day off, he didn't want to refuse his beloved wife. Let her spend some time there. Maybe it would make her feel better. They drove for a long time along the dusty and bumpy road and finally arrived at their destination. All that was left of the house was ashes. Victoria could hardly cope with her emotions. She wanted to cry. She had spent her childhood and youth in this house. She had been happy here, and then some jerk had ruined it all. Her parents had put so much work and effort into this house, and now what? She wandered among the black chod sticks and bricks, and she didn't even know what she was looking for. Lucas stood nearby and didn't interfere. He understood that Victoria needed to be alone now. Sophia, like any restless and curious child, began to inspect everything. She took a big stick and began to poke at the burned corner of the house as if fighting an invisible enemy, imagining herself a warrior. Suddenly the bricks fell, and the girl screamed in fright and barely had time to move away. A metal box fell to the ground. Lucas rushed over to his daughter. Victoria also ran over, and the three of them stared in surprise at the discovery. Lucas decided to make a joke. "Well, we've finally found the Countess's treasure. Now we're going to be rich." Although he didn't believe it at all. It must be some old junk. He made a lot of effort to open the box, but when he finally opened it, he didn't feel like joking anymore. There were a lot of ancient coins and jewelry inside. All three of them just kept silent and stared at it, unable to believe that they were actually seeing it all. Little Sophia marveled. "Well, Mummy, so it was true. That fairy tale you told me was true. What a beautiful brooch. Can I try it on?" Sophia took a heavy brooch, which shimmered in the sun with all the colors of the rainbow. Victoria was the first to recover from the shock. She said, "My dream was prophetic. My grandmother brought me here. Honey, we're rich now. Do you have any idea how much this is all worth?" But Lucas cooled down her excitement and said, "I'm going to upset you, but according to the law, we have to give it all to the government, and they'll pay us a small part of it. We have to inform the police about it. Otherwise, we will be punished." But I'm also amazed. I mean, this box has been hidden in the wall for at least a couple of decades, and no one's been able to find it. Unbelievable. Victoria was a little upset. "Well, I didn't know. I've been dreaming of finding the treasure for so many years, and now I have to give it all away. Although, maybe these coins will be exhibited in a museum. And the painting in the church. It's a historical treasure. A modest reward will be enough for us. We'll go to the sea, have a vacation, and open a bank account for Sophia. I also want to rebuild this house and open a museum in memory of my ancestors. I think my grandmother would be pleased. And lastly, I want to donate to the orphanage, the same one where you found Sophia. What do you think of my plans?" Lucas kissed Victoria and replied, "Great plans. Let's do it. The most important thing for me is that I found you and my daughter. Everything else is not so important. I'm ready to do whatever you say." The couple informed the government about the treasure, but then it turned out that Victoria was not obliged to give it all to the government because she was a rightful heiress. They had to prepare a lot of documents and go to many government services, but as a result, all the contents of the box were recognized as the woman's inheritance. The news that they found treasures in the burnt house quickly spread throughout the village. Neighbors talked a lot about it because everyone knew the legend about the treasure, but no one believed it. When Victoria started to rebuild the house, neighbors started coming to her, talking about life, asking if she was going to start farming again. The woman was mad because they only started communicating with her when she became rich. But when she was in trouble, No one helped her. Newspapers and websites published articles about the treasures. TV presented the story. The whole historical family chain was restored, and it was found out that a famous countess had lived here. This amazing story impressed many people, and after the opening of the museum, tourists came eagerly and looked at manuscripts and books. A dress embroidered with gems, which were also found in the box. Things were changing at the hospital. When Max found out that Lucas's life was getting better and that he had become rich, he couldn't wait. He was angry, and during the next inspection he made many unforgivable mistakes. And since there had been complaints about him before, the Ministry of Health decided to dismiss the man from his position and appointed Lucas as head of the department. This was a fair decision, because the surgeon was fighting for the life of every patient. And even though private clinics repeatedly offered him a job, he refused, because he believed that everyone should be saved, both rich and poor. He didn't want to trade his talent. The hospital staff rejoiced and congratulated Lucas, while Max only got angry and nervously packed his belongings at the office. He hated Lucas even more, not realizing that he was only ruining his own life by poisoning himself with hatred and envy. Greg's life also took an unfortunate turn. At first, he enjoyed a rich life and never denied himself anything. Greg felt like a king of life, and his conscience didn't torment him at all. After all, he never loved Victoria. He married her only for the sake of profit, and little Sophia irritated him. In front of his wife, he had to pretend to be a kind daddy, but the girl quickly realized that he was faking. The man didn't know how to get rid of the annoying girl, but when Victoria suddenly became ill, he realized that it was his chance. Of course, he had to pay a lot of money to make the plan work. But eventually, the annoying child was in an orphanage, and his wife was probably dead, and he was rich and free. His life seemed perfect, but it didn't last long. One day, Greg drank a lot of alcohol and decided to learn to surf. He always watched enviously how easily the skilled surfers rode the waves on a board. He imagined what a pleasure it was. But the instructor, smelling the odor of alcohol, refused to go into the ocean with him. It was strictly forbidden by the rules, but Greg simply grabbed the board and swam forward. He wanted to show off in front of a pretty lady in a bikini, to show how brave he was. But he couldn't keep the balance and was swept away by the wave. The lifeguards couldn't save him. It was a ridiculous, stupid death. The instructor called lifeguards and police, and a couple of minutes later, they found the body. In Greg's rented house, they found a cell phone in addition to documents and money. Victoria received a call from the embassy. They asked if she was going to take the body of her late spouse and bury it. But the woman replied sharply, "That man ruined my whole life. I hate him, and I don't care who buries him and where." Victoria didn't feel sorry for the scoundrel. This was payback to him for everything he had done. With Lucas, the woman became truly happy, and only now she realized what it means to love and be loved. It is not necessary to shout about it, because love manifests itself in small things. In every phrase, "I love you," in not waking her up, but making a delicious breakfast yourself, in hugging and supporting her when she feels bad, and rejoicing when she succeeds, and most importantly in loving and raising their daughter together, worrying about her, enjoying her successes, and spending time together with the child. 6 months later, the couple decided to get married officially. Lucas insisted on a lavish wedding. At first, Victoria was against it. "Honey, why on earth would we throw a wedding party? We're not in our 20s anymore." But Lucas persuaded her. "No, Charlotte and I didn't have a wedding party, and neither did you and Greg. But I want us to enjoy this unforgettable experience. This is what every woman dreams of, to put on a white dress and feel like a beautiful bride. And age has nothing to do with it. I want us to remember this day forever. When we're old, we'll lie on the couch and watch our wedding videos and look at our wedding photos. It's so heartwarming." They decided to celebrate the wedding in a nice restaurant. There were not many guests. Lucas' parents, his friends, and colleagues. The nurses congratulated their favorite doctor, and everyone was surprised at how Victoria had changed. They just couldn't believe that Victoria was the same beggar who once got into their hospital with appendicitis. Now they saw a gorgeous woman in a beautiful, elegant dress, and a little princess, Sophia, by her side. Sophia was also wearing a charming white dress. The girl looked like a beautiful doll. Lucas' parents were sincerely happy for their son. They saw that he had found a strong family again, and they loved Sophia as their own granddaughter. Lucas was laughing, tossing Sophia up, and saying, "My dear girl, thank you for being our daughter. You're the one who brought happiness back into my home."